Hello, and welcome back to Dr. Shoke's podcast series. Today, I'm very excited to have Sahir here with me. Hi, Sahir.
Hi, how are you?
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'm so excited for the conversation because you're just a powerhouse. So, Sahir, do you want to tell us a bit about yourself?
Yes, so I am a health and wellness coach. I wear many hats. I'm a Pilates teacher, personal trainer. I specialize in midlife women. So I am passionate about health and wellness for women of all ages, but particularly midlife because that's where I am now. So just trying to get women to move from survival mode to thriving and just enjoy this season of their life.
I love that. Moving from survival mode to thriving. And I can't wait to dig deep into that. Excellent. So today we're going to be having a conversation that we've titled From Periods to Menopause, How Physical Activity Can Support Women's Health. So it's going to be a wide-ranging conversation around physical activity and its impact. And I think, what I love about you is that you're a very proud woman of color and you represent your community with fitness. And that's so empowering because, as we know, sometimes in communities of color, fitness is not necessarily always a big priority, but it's so important when we think about all aspects of women's health. So you are just an amazing person to talk to about this. And that's why I really, really wanted to get you on here. So I'm very excited that you're here. Okay, so we're going to just start off with a girl's just got into puberty. She's just started her menstrual periods. And she's maybe having symptoms of PMS with mood swings and all of that leading up to her periods, and also maybe having some period pain or cramping. So how can exercise help with this?
You see, movement is medicine, regardless of what stage of life you're in. And it's so easy when you don't feel good in your body, if you're having pain, if you're lethargic, feel bloated, which is quite common. You can feel down. So it's hard to find that motivation. But we know that exercise improves and increases endorphins in our body. So it's just a feel-good lotion in itself. And it helps reduce bloating. It can help the cramps because it will kind of get rid of the toxins that build up in our body around the menstrual cycle. So we have a chemical called prostaglandins, which builds up and is really the culprit for a lot of the cramps. And often we can end up with like estrogen just hanging around in the body and it needs to be flushed out almost, okay? So moving the body, sweating it out, getting ourselves just up and off the couch is just going to make you feel better. And it's also going to help with the moods and the anxiety. So it's just a win-win situation. You just have to find the motivation to get there.
So, just flashing back to being 15, 14, and really struggling with period pain and not wanting to do gym. Because I remember like that would be like, I'm like, nah, I'm not going because I feel so awful. How do you have that discomfort, but break into the physical activity, find that motivation?
I think it's about like shifting the mindset. So it doesn't have to be gym, right? You can go for a walk, you can do some stretches, you can do Pilates in the house, you can go and have a game of netball or basketball with your friends, which then is also going to give you that sort of peer support and accountability when you're doing it with other people. So it's about changing the narrative that so it's not just I have to go to the gym. That the gym is not the only form of movement. There's so many forms of movement. We just have to find something that works for us at that point.
I love that. Because I personally am not the biggest friend of the gym, but put me walking, brisk walking in the park, and it's like that is my zone. And I've literally found a correlation between when I'm able to get outside and walk with my mental health and just general well-being.
Yeah.
Um, and I wish I knew that then about how movement, as you say, is medicine and could have helped me because I had really bad cramps. In fact, I almost actually failed out of medical school because of how bad my periods were. And once I was having my periods, it was almost like I was out. And so I was missing 3, 4 days a month of medical school. And I wish I had known some of the other strategies, like that movement could have been more helpful at that time. Um, Now, obviously, during a woman's cycle, there's different changes. You alluded to, parts of times when estrogen is higher during the cycle, and how, obviously we know that estrogen is generally a positive hormone. It's the hormone that primarily makes us female, and it's not a negative hormone at all. But sometimes, the changes in the hormone levels across the cycle can really impact. And that's why we have things like PMS. So, are there any specific types of exercise that are beneficial during the cycle, during the different parts of the cycle? So, from when you're around your periods to the middle of the cycle to the build up to your periods?
Yeah, no, definitely. You see, we're not linear as women. We're not just like one straight line. It's not as simple as that, and it does take a little bit of thought around it. So we have the fluctuations of our hormones throughout the cycle, and that affects us in all ways. So it affects our mood, our cognitive function, how we feel physically, our energy levels, even our anxiety levels can sort of fluctuate through the month. So kind of trying to work around that and using it to your advantage rather than seeing it as a negative, it like can really change the mindset. So I would just say, if we talk about when our estrogen is at its highest around ovulation time, this is the time when we're going to be thriving, we're going to be feeling our best, we can achieve so much. Like it's like the Beyonce time of your cycle.
Yes.
And this is when you're going to smash out in the gym, you're going to be achieving your projects at work or school or whatever it is. So that's when you want to be going all out for it, really thinking about, making the most of this energy that is in your body, in your mind. And then once ovulation is completed, we can kind of start to head down into the luteal phase, which is coming up before our periods, which often is when women will say that they can feel moody, they can feel tired, they feel more hungry. And I think we just need to be mindful that they are changes that are happening in our body. It's not like in our mind, it is happening. And then to tailor our exercise a little bit, maybe reduce intensity. Think of those walks, maybe like a little bit of reduced strength training or Pilates, something that is going to help you feel more empowered in that stage when you can feel a little bit less than your normal self. And definitely then heading into your period, you want to be thinking about taking it easy. It is a time when we do need to be a little bit mindful. So maybe have a couple of days off exercise. And then when you get back to it, as you go into like day 3, 4 of your cycle, you can start to, again, I go for Pilates. I know it's my first love, but it's just it's just so good for all the things there. So go for the Pilates, go for increasing your aerobic activity a little bit. And then again, strength training is just fantastic. And with strength training, you can alter the intensity, so you don't have to always be trying to achieve your personal best or the heaviest weight. You can change it up and think, well, okay, no, this is my, time where I need to be lifting a little bit less, but I still want to lift a little bit, So just being mindful that we are not linear. And we have what is called like an infradian rhythm. So we have the circadian rhythm, which is the 24-hour cycle of the day. But as women, we have a 28-day to 35-day cycle. And that affects all those things in our life that we need to just be mindful of. And it can work in your benefit if you do think about it in advance.
I love this. And what I'm hearing is you need to extend grace to yourself and literally listen to your body.
Yes.
So think about the physical activity that works best with how you're feeling. So when the estrogen is high and you're feeling, the first couple of weeks of the cycle after your period, you're feeling that energy, go for it as much as you can. But when you're now in the luteal phase, still movement is still really important, but maybe be more gentle. And it's what you're talking about. It's like a combination of different things. So there's kind of like the aerobic exercise, then there's the more kind of flexibility exercises like Pilates and yoga, and then there's the strength exercises. And I love this because this is the conversation that I have with my menopausal patients about trying to have all those, I know we're going to come to that, but it's really important that we're having that conversation from the get-go, in that people should be incorporating different aspects of physical activity into their day-to-day lives. But also in that cycle, you extend grace to yourself as the month progresses. Because as you say, I love that. We're not linear. I love
We're not linear, so we're not little men. We are
Yeah.
women. We have a completely different makeup. We have different emotions. We have a different way of processing them. And I think we've got into a time that we feel this comparison and we try and keep up with men. And I think personally, myself, it's much more empowering to stand in your power and say, no, I am a woman and I'm going to honor my body. I'm going to honor my emotions. I'm going to honor my cycle rather than see it as a negative.
I love this. Absolutely love this. Thank you. That's amazing. Honor my emotions, honor my cycle. I love it. Now, we were just talking about perimenopause and menopause. And as you know, obviously, I'm a women's health doctor, but I also have a special interest in the menopause. And so, physical activity, this is how I put it to my patients. I say, when we talk about menopause care, if we don't talk about lifestyle and lifestyle factors, it's like putting a plaster on a gaping wound. So the wound is bleeding out and needs sutures, and we just put a plaster and say, we have to put in the sutures, and the lifestyle factors are the foundation. And of course, physical activity is a core leg, a core strand of this lifestyle factors. So can you explain to us how physical activity can help in the perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopausal period?
It comes down to exactly the same thing as even when we were just talking about when your periods start. Movement is medicine, right? And exercise has been proven to alleviate symptoms of menopause, such as mood swings, cognitive issues, anxiety, hot flushes, night sweats. And when I say that to women, you need to exercise to combat these symptoms. They're like, oh no, because we just associate exercise with losing weight or having a six pack, or, glutes and biceps. But there's so much more to exercise than the aesthetics. Aesthetics are wonderful, but there is so much more to it. And incorporating exercise as a must into your regime, into your routine, is so sensible that we have to do it. It's part of our little toolkit that is going to keep us well and happy through menopause, through perimenopause. It's a necessity. Like, without it, you're going to struggle. You still may need to have HRT. You still may need to seek other avenues, speak to your medical professionals, but first port of call when you're trying to address your symptoms of perimenopause and menopause is lifestyle. So you're going to need to look at your exercise, you're going to need to look at your nutrition, your stress management, your sleep, you know, what are you trying to achieve in your life? How much as women we end up putting on our plate. And by the time you reach this point in your life, there is just way too much on that plate. And then we wonder, like, why am I struggling? You know, why am I tired? Why am I so demotivated? Because we're not investing anything into ourselves. You know, this takes investment. Our health takes serious investment. And it's the most important investment you're ever going to make in your life. You know? So it's going to help all those symptoms. Without a doubt, it's going to help all those symptoms.
I love that. And I love how you talked about mental load as well, which is something that I'm super passionate about and always talking about the impact of the mental load that women carry on their physical and mental health and on the symptoms of menopause. So, as you say, the physical activity is such a key strand because not only does it alleviate physical symptoms, but also the mental health symptoms and can really help a woman feel better. So it's about how can she actually imbibe that into her day-to-day life, because we know that a lot of perimenopausal women and menopausal women are time poor. And that's the challenge, because for a lot of women, they're straggling two things. So they're working full-time, caring for multiple generations. So a lot of the time looking after children and possibly also elderly relatives. And then you know how much stress. And so they often say, Doctor, I don't have time. But when I talk about self-care and self-prioritization, this is one of them. When you realize that physical activity is a non-negotiable, it's as important as eating and drinking for your physical well-being and for your mental well-being. And it's just something that you must prioritize. And as I say, incorporate it into your lifestyle. Don't think you have to go to the gym like you were saying. You can just have a brisk walk. And sometimes I say, do you know what? During your lunch break, just go outside and do a 10-15 minute walk. Just, do that brisk walk. As you say, you can watch a video of Pilates on at home, a bit of yoga. If you can't get out of the house, you can do it, whilst playing with the children, running around with the children. Just incorporate it, maybe run to the pickup instead of driving, all of these sorts of things. So what advice do you have for women who, because they're experiencing fatigue or low energy levels, feel that, they can't incorporate, and, even for heavy mental load reasons that we've just discussed, feel that they can't incorporate physical activity to their routine?
I think we need to simplify it. Okay, we've overcomplicated it. We think of exercise, as I said, going to the gym, having all the gear, having the best active wear, looking cute in your active wear. I can't do that. I can't look like that. I don't look like her. I don't look like all the trainers online. It doesn't have to be that way. Okay, you don't even need to have active wear. Just say to yourself, right, 5 minutes. I'm going to do 5 minutes before I cook the dinner, or before my next household chore, or you're in between work and my household chores when you have that switchover. I'm just going to do 5 minutes, standing in the kitchen, waiting for the kettle to boil, anything, and do those 5 minutes. As you are dressed, do some squats, do some lunges, do some press-ups on your worktop, perfect for, beginners. And I will tell you, you will see that increase over time, because those 5 minutes are going to make you feel fantastic. And then you'll find yourself that you will be there for 10 minutes because you're quite enjoying this little 5 minutes. It's your little outlet. So you can make it 10 minutes. And then in 2 weeks' time, make it 15 minutes. And just, you will feel the increase in the endorphins. You will feel the mood improve. And it will just be a catalyst to you want to do it more. So it's just about taking out the complications, letting it be as simple as it is. Go for a walk with the kids, pop them in the pushchair, or walk somewhere rather than take the car. To get off the bus 2 stops earlier. There's so many little things that we can do that will put those movements into the day we don't need to think of it as I need to make an hour or an hour and a half, and I need to go to the gym, and then it's actually going to take me 2 hours because I need to drive to the gym. That I need to drive back. And that's not possible. I'm not doing it. There's too many barriers. So we need to just remove the barriers, make it as simple as possible, and you will notice that you will want it more. You will increase that investment because you will reap the benefits of it. You will feel it in your body, in your mind, in your emotions. So it's just simplifying it.
Yeah, I love that. Honestly, I think as you're saying, just simplify it. Don't complicate it. Like, know, look at me. I'm not someone who is, you know, loving the gym. I really don't. I find, gym exercising to be very, I just don't like it. But I found what I enjoy, which is spending time outdoors and just moving my body. And you can find what works for you too. Some people absolutely love the gym. It's very individual. Some people love swimming. You talked about team sports, and there again, as you mentioned, there's that extra factor of having it as a social a factor. And
Social.
the socialization of it can actually also help symptoms. And, sometimes in my practice, I would say to people, go and do something that is a corporate activity, especially if they're, having symptoms of feeling lonely. And I think that's a really good way of meeting people, like joining a class. Like a lot of people enjoy classes, so like Pilates classes or yoga classes. So you might join a gym and not actually go into the core gym, but actually just join classes. And that can be really, really helpful as well. Now, one of the things that happens in perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopausally is that we start to lose bone density as we lose estrogen. Now, and we know how important physical activity is to help preserve that bone health. So, what strategies can women use to improve their bone health in this time of life?
Yeah, so definitely bone health is something that is associated with, menopause and postmenopause. And we reach our peak of bone health in our 30s. So you think that's actually quite early. And then your bone health is going to start to reduce. So you need to be thinking about that as early as your 30s. What am I going to do to help my bone health so that I'm not falling over and having fractures, etc., as I'm in my 60s, 70s. And we can improve our bone health just by strength training, by lifting those weights or working against resistance. So even your own body weight, body weight squats, anything that is like incorporates jumping, so a bit of bounce. So I'm thinking of things like skipping or even getting on the kids' trampoline, something that is like enjoyable for you. And it's giving that the bones that rebound. So that is going to strengthen the bones. And it's something that does need to be consciously like incorporated into your life, because the research has shown that there is more and more fractures happening. There is more and more osteoporosis because we're not being so mindful of our bone health. So when you think of exercise and how you're going to incorporate it into your life, you just want to be mindful that you're covering all bases. You're working towards your muscle strength, your bone health, your heart health, and your mental health. And just trying to find different forms of exercise that will help that. But we do need to be quite mindful of it.
Yeah. And, the other thing that obviously starts to diminish as we get older is our flexibility and our awareness of ourselves in space, and also our joint health. And again, you're the queen of Pilates. So things like Pilates can really help with that flexibility and that knowledge of yourself in space. Things like yoga as well, Tai Chi. And it's those sorts of things that can also really support your balance as
That's
you.
right. I was just going to say the balance is a key issue, because if our balance does start to diminish, and if we don't work on it and we don't practice it, it just reduces and reduces, and that's where the falls come in, you know. So just incorporating a little bit of balance exercises. I do it with all my clients. You know, we work on different balance exercises, standing on one leg, trying to put your sock on without putting your foot down, trying to put your shoes on. You know, you've seen some of these challenges on social media, but they're quite beneficial because they work on the balance, and then they work on keeping balance in our lives for longer. So it comes down to really kind of changing the mindset around exercise, full stop, from sort of birth right up until, you know, as we're aging in our late 70s, 80s, is that it is actually something to invest in for health purposes. Aesthetics to one side, that is something else. Even weight loss to one side, that is something else. It's about being healthy and well in our body so that we can age well, so we can feel good. Who wants to feel rubbish and tired and lethargic and anxious all the time? And if you have this tool right at your disposal, you know, we need to use it. It's so easy.
It's amazing because it almost feels like for a lot of people, their reasoning for not wanting to participate in that physical activities, all those things you've mentioned. Oh, I'm tired. Oh, I don't feel good. Oh, I feel pain. And it feels like, okay, so obviously we're not saying exercise to be in pain, but actually exercise can improve pain. And when we think of a lot of women who struggle with pelvic pain and lots of health conditions. So obviously you do need the medical treatment, the clinical treatment, but physical activity can go a long way to helping manage those symptoms.
I'll just tell you a really quick story about one of my clients. So she's been with me for a year now. When she came here to me, she could barely walk. She was struggling with sciatica with her hip. She's had a double hip replacement. And she said that she was almost suicidal, right? She just thought her life was over. She's in her mid-60s. We've been working together now for a year, very low intensity, a couple of times a week, and she has completely done a 360 in her life. She can do all the activities, go walking, play with her grandchildren, go on holiday, walk for miles. She looks forward to her sessions. She won't miss a session because she knows that that session is going to make her feel better. So even between the last session and today, she might feel her pain has increased somewhat with her sciatica. She knows, I'm going to go to my session, I'm going to come out of there and I'm going to feel fantastic.
Amazing. What a lovely, inspiring story. And I definitely know that from my own personal experience, when I have increased physical activity or incorporated physical activity, especially when I felt really tired, I have felt more energized. My sleep has improved. So many things have gotten better. My mental health has improved. And so the benefit of physical activity for those sorts of symptoms cannot be overstated. Now, one of the things that we were going to just, talk about is that, when women are, so we've talked about puberty, we've talked about menopause, but women, when they are postpartum or during pregnancy, what are the things that they can do to keep active, and how can they, because I'm very much against the bounce back, because I absolutely completely say don't even think about that. You've got to let your body recover, and I'll say it takes about 2 years to fully recover from having a baby, because it's such a big thing to your body. So it's not about, as you say, the aesthetics of the bounce back. It's really about how can you have a healthier pregnancy, and then postpartum, how can you be healthier and look after your baby?
Number one is to, like you said, be very kind to yourself. Okay, this is a huge transition in your life. Huge, monumental. And Western society has made it into something that, you know, like, oh, have your baby, pop it out, 6 weeks, you're back in your size 8 jeans, and that's all what life is about. No, no, no. That is not the case. You know, we have to honor the fact that you've just created life, or you're creating life, and that takes a huge toll on your body, and to then listen to your body. Be kind to yourself. Realize that it's a process. Take it day by day and start from your foundations. So even pregnancy, postpartum, think about your pelvic floor, your breath work. They're your keys. They are going to really help you start to rebuild from your foundations. That's what I would suggest to any of my clients, any of, you know, just anybody. Once you've got the pelvic floor and the breath working, again, walking is like a superpower. It's going to get you outside. It's going to get you moving. It's going to get fresh air. And then slowly, slowly just start to build some intensity where you can start to strengthen your muscles, strengthen your bones, and get a little bit more moderate intensity into your exercise. But taking it day by day and slowly, and giving yourself grace to know that my body is changing and it may not be the same as pre-pregnancy, and that's okay. Your capacity of what you achieve from your body may not be the same, but also giving the precedence to sleep, to your stress management, trying to nurture yourself with really good foods, really highly nutritious foods that are going to help you heal from the inside out. And just looking after yourself and finding that support in your network. So with your partner, with your families, using those networks around you to maybe have some time then that you could have a little bit time out and go and do your exercise, go for a walk, pop to the gym. I know we say, but maybe if you want to pop to the gym or to an exercise class with your friends, it doesn't have to be complicated.
Absolutely. I remember we used to have these mommy and me classes that we would go to where we could do exercise gentle with the children, the baby, and other women. And I found that a lifeline, because otherwise I'd just be at home alone. And this network of women, you know, we would then, you know, after that go for lunch and things like that. It was a really good way for me to maintain my mental health as well as be active. And, you know, I love what you said about being outside. We know that independently, green spaces or spending time in nature has a positive effect on our physical and mental health. That's also evidence-based. So when you can combine the two, physical activity and green spaces, you're on to a winner. So certainly, taking the pram, going for a walk. We know that during pregnancy, you know, some women are really conscious of physical activity. You know, I suffered with a preterm birth, so I was quite a high risk pregnancy. But physical activity in pregnancy is also important. We just have to be aware of each person's individual journey with
Right.
that.
Yeah.
And it very much depends on how much you used to do prior to pregnancy. But, you know, I've had a conversation with a female footballer, and she was really upset when they tried to bench her as soon as they found out she was pregnant. And she said, you know, why would you do that? Like, I know my own body. But again, you know, there's women like me who, you know, because of the risk of preterm birth, I was advised not to do too much physical activity. And so there's a whole range, but even then I still walked. I tried to walk and tried to keep active as best as I could, just not doing anything strenuous. So during pregnancy is an individual journey, but it's also really important. Again, that mental health factor is really, really important.
Yeah, definitely. Like if you're a footballer or if you're an avid gym goer, you know, just carry on where you were, modify as you need. You're going to know if you're at that level. If you've never been active, I wouldn't say suddenly start going to the gym
Yes.
and lifting weights. Not very sensible. But you know, make sure the walking. I would always come back to walking because I just think it's like a miracle. It has everything in it, you know. You've got the outside, you've got the fresh air, you've got the movement. It solves 95% of life's problems is to go for a walk. You know, you feel so much different after you've gone for a walk.
It's basically like a British cup of tea.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's fantastic. And I know we've already kind of alluded to this, but I just kind of want to leave people with some very practical tips of how when you're juggling, so this is for the whole gamut of women throughout their lives. Leading busy lives, juggling lots of different responsibilities, and trying to carve out and prioritize physical activity. What are the practical tips, just some take-home tips that you can suggest for integrating exercise into daily routines?
Firstly, is changing the mindset around it, seeing it as a necessity and not a luxury. Okay, so this is not I'm going to pop to the shops because I need a new outfit. This is a necessity. When you change your mindset that it's something I have to do in my life, just like eating my dinner and brushing my teeth, it can frame things differently in how you then plan out your day. So think about your day, think about your must-haves, what you must do, and just exercise has to be one of those. Simplify it, take the complication out of it, make it as easy and accessible as possible. So whether it's those home workouts, whether it's follow along video, maybe take the time length out of it. So don't say to yourself, it has to be an hour. Just say 10 minutes, 20 minutes. We can all find 10 minutes somewhere. Don't even get changed. Just do it in your jeans and whatever you're wearing. You don't need to be wearing active wear and the best trainers and the snazziest leggings. Just do it as you are and start to incorporate those little changes in your life. And you will just see it becomes a catalyst. You then might become the person who wants the best leggings and who's in the gym for an hour, just because you've realized the benefit of it.
It's interesting you say this about whatever clothes you're wearing, because I've spent a lot of time with my sister lives in the States, but in the last year, she's had some work things that she's had to come to the UK. And one of the things I noticed is this girl sleeps in her activewear. Like, and her reasoning is just that mental thing of having to change when she gets up in the morning is too much for her. So she'll actually sleep in her activewear. So when she gets up, the first thing she does is her physical activity because she wakes up ready. And I was like, wow, I absolutely love this. And so I try to do that sometimes. So I'm like, okay, I have to go for a walk first thing. I'm going to sleep in my activewear. But you know what? Sometimes I have been known to be like, do you know what? I'm just going to put a hoodie over my pajamas or a coat over my pajamas and go, rather than the mental barrier of, okay, I need to change.
Well, I'm a health and wellness professional, right? I make videos online and I will quite often post up a video of me doing something in my pajamas because that day I just did not want to put on my activewear. So if I didn't and associated my activewear with movement, it would have happened. So I just did my video in my pajamas.
I love it.
I was still moving. And then I was fine. Then I got up, got dressed, and got about my day because I just needed that little bit of a kick from my movement.
Yeah, it's amazing. So the thing is, try and get rid, I think that's what you're trying to say, is simplify this as much as possible. Get rid of all the mental barriers and see it as a necessity. And then that will then change your outlook. I think this has been a fantastic conversation, honestly. So here I'm blown away. There have been so many amazing points that you shared and we've learned. Do you have any closing thoughts before we end?
My closing thoughts are to honor ourselves as women, to acknowledge what we have on our plate, and also prioritize ourselves, and to realize that Self-care is not selfish, it's very sensible. And if we fill our cup and look after ourselves, we are going to be so much happier and better at being mums and wives and daughters and sisters and friends. We have to nurture ourselves first. It's the most important factor.
Thank you. I love that. Now, can you tell us how we can contact you on social media, and how, listeners can reach out to you to find
Sure.
out more?
So all my handles are SAE Pilates and Fitness, and I'm on most social media platforms. And you can also, if you check out me on the platforms, you will see my email. You can pop me an email, a DM. I'll be happy to answer any questions and help people get moving.
Thank you so much. And I'm particularly inspired because you're a woman of color, and you are actually a motivation and inspiration for women like us. So it's just like, wow, we see someone that kind of is a woman of color as well, doing such amazing things, is a fitness instructor. And just thank you so much for all you do.
Thank you. I'm honored to be on. It was lovely.
Thank you so much. So join us next time on Dr. Showcase. We're going to end it there. All right. Bye-bye.